Have you ever wondered how a policy from the 19th century could have a profound effect on the political landscape of an entire country? Today, we're going to embark on a captivating journey back in time to explore an intriguing slice of history, the Doctrine of Lapse, a policy that forever changed the face of India under British rule. Intrigued? Curious? Let's unravel the facts together. Stay tuned as we delve into the fascinating world of the Doctrine of Lapse. In the mid-19th century, a policy known as the Doctrine of Lapse was introduced. This doctrine, as intricate as it may sound, was a systematic plan devised by the British East India Company to annex Indian states. But what exactly was this doctrine, and how did it come into being? The Doctrine of Lapse, in essence, was an annexation policy. It was formulated by Lord Dalhousie, who served as the Governor-General of India from 1848 to 1856. Lord Dalhousie, a man of strategic intellect, saw the potential for British expansion in India and decided to seize it. So what was the doctrine's primary goal? The answer is simple yet profound. The Doctrine of Lapse was designed to expand British territories in India. According to this policy, any princely state or territory under the direct influence of the East India Company, as a vassal state under the British subsidiary system, would automatically be annexed if the ruler was either manifestly incompetent or died without a direct heir. The annexed state would then come under the complete control of the British East India Company. Introduced in the year 1848, the Doctrine of Lapse was a diplomatic move cloaked in the garb of legal language. It gave the British an apparent legitimacy to their territorial ambitions, allowing them to expand their rule across vast swathes of the Indian subcontinent under the pretext of a lack of direct heirs in the Indian princely states. But this was not simply a matter of land acquisition. The Doctrine of Lapse was a calculated move to systematically dismantle the power structures of India, alter the traditional hierarchies, and establish British dominance. It was a policy that played a pivotal role in shaping the political and social landscape of India during the British Raj. The Doctrine of Lapse was a masterstroke in imperial strategy, but its implications were far-reaching. Now that we understand the Doctrine of Lapse, let's examine how it was implemented. The Doctrine of Lapse was a policy that allowed the British East India Company to seize control of states where the ruler was deemed incompetent or had died without a male heir. Several Indian states fell under the grip of this policy, changing the political landscape of India forever. The first state to be annexed under this policy was Satara in 1848. Satara was a Maratha princely state in the present-day state of Maharashtra. The ruler of Satara, Pratap Singh, had adopted a child as his heir. However, the British refused to recognize the adopted heir, leading to the annexation of Satara. Next, we move to Jaitpur, a small princely state in Madhya Pradesh. The ruler of Jaitpur had also adopted a son, but again, the British did not recognize the adopted heir and annexed Jaitpur in 1852. In 1853, the Doctrine of Lapse was applied to Nagpur, another Maratha princely state. The last Maratha ruler of Nagpur died without a direct male heir, leading to the British taking over the state. The most famous instance of the doctrine's application was in Jhansi, where Rani Lakshmibai's adopted son was not recognized as the rightful heir by the British. This led to the annexation of Jhansi in 1854, sparking a rebellion that is a significant part of India's freedom struggle. The criteria for annexation were rather subjective and heavily depended on the British officials' discretion. Generally, the British would annex a state if the ruler was deemed incompetent, had no direct male heir, or had adopted a child without the British's approval. The Doctrine of Lapse was not just a tool for territorial expansion. It was a strategic move by the British to consolidate their power and control over the Indian subcontinent. The implementation of this policy led to widespread discontent and resistance among the Indian populace, setting the stage for the outbreak of the Indian Rebellion of 1857. The doctrine played a significant role in reshaping India's political map. The Doctrine of Lapse was more than just a political tool. It had profound implications. Let's delve into these implications and the repercussions that followed. Imagine for a moment you're an Indian ruler during the mid-19th century. You've been leading your kingdom, maintaining peace, and ensuring prosperity. Then all of a sudden, you're told your rule is illegitimate, your land will be annexed, and your people will be governed by a foreign power. This was the harsh reality for many Indian rulers under the Doctrine of Lapse. The Doctrine of Lapse stripped rulers of their power, their rights, and their dignity. It disrupted the traditional systems of governance and the established social order. Local rulers, who had for centuries been the custodians of their land and people, were suddenly deemed unfit for rule. This not only instilled a sense of helplessness, but also stirred a deep resentment among the rulers and the public alike. But the effects of this doctrine were not limited to the rulers. It extended to the Indian public as well. The British, with their unfamiliar ways of governance, disrupted the social fabric of Indian society. Their disregard for local customs and traditions, coupled with the imposition of foreign laws and taxes, led to widespread discontent. The public felt alienated and disrespected. Their way of life was being threatened, and they could do little about it. Moreover, the Doctrine of Lapse significantly altered the political climate of India. It created an environment of uncertainty and mistrust. The rulers no longer saw the British as allies or trading partners, but as a threat to their sovereignty. The public, on the other hand, saw them as oppressors, looting their land and exploiting their people. This was a far cry from the cordial relationships that had once existed between the British and the Indian states. Interestingly, the Doctrine of Lapse did not just sow seeds of resentment, but it also acted as a catalyst for change. It united the Indian states in their struggle against a common enemy, thus fostering a sense of shared identity and nationalism. This collective discontent eventually culminated in the 1857 revolt, considered by many as India's first war of independence. The revolt was a direct response to the oppressive policies of the British, including the Doctrine of Lapse. It was a powerful statement against foreign rule and a call for self-governance. While the revolt was eventually quelled, it marked the beginning of a long and arduous journey towards Indian independence. In conclusion, the Doctrine of Lapse, though seemingly just a policy, had far-reaching implications. It disrupted the social order, stripped rulers of their power, and altered the political climate of India. But most importantly, it awakened a spirit of defiance and unity among the Indian public, eventually leading to their struggle for independence. The Doctrine of Lapse was not just a policy, but a catalyst that spurred the Indian rebellion. As we come to the end of our journey, let's recap what we've learned about the Doctrine of Lapse. The Doctrine of Lapse, introduced in the mid-19th century, was a controversial policy implemented by the British East India Company. This strategy, masterminded by then-Governor-General James Dalhousie, was designed to annex princely states in India that did not have a direct male heir. The doctrine declared that any princely state under the direct influence of the British East India Company would automatically be annexed if the ruler was either deemed incompetent or died without a male heir. This policy was not merely an administrative measure. It was a calculated strategy that allowed the British to extend their control over vast territories in India without resorting to outright warfare. Its implementation led to the annexation of several significant princely states, including Jhansi, Sambalpur, and Nagpur, to name but a few. However, the Doctrine of Lapse was not just about territorial expansion. It had profound implications that reverberated through the social, political, and cultural fabric of India. It disrupted traditional hierarchies, displaced established rulers, and instigated significant resentment among the Indian populace. The widespread discontent and anger against the doctrine of lapse played a pivotal role in the eruption of the Great Revolt of 1857, also known as the First War of Indian Independence. This revolt marked a turning point in Indian history, leading to the dissolution of the East India Company and the direct control of India by the British Crown. In conclusion, the doctrine of lapse was more than just a policy. It was a tool of colonial expansion that profoundly altered India's political landscape. It not only led to the annexation of many princely states, but also sowed the seeds of resistance that eventually culminated in the struggle for Indian independence. The doctrine of lapse was a significant chapter in India's colonial history, one that left an indelible mark on its political landscape.